Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, HR professionals and business leaders. Depending on where you're watching us for the forum, welcome to this week HR Digest. My name is Winifred Yause, and my co-host is.
My name is Joshua Jesse, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, co-host. If you can hear me clearly, kindly confirm in the chats and let us know where you are joining us from, and kindly acknowledge where you are from. Please share with your colleagues and your networks wherever you are, whether Facebook, whether LinkedIn, whether YouTube. Kindly share with your colleagues or working mates from whatever groups that you are in for them to join so that we can have a healthy discussion. Please let me brief you on what Sadat Consult Limited is all about. Sadat Consult Limited is an HR, it provides HR support, advisory, outsourcing, talent acquisition and management, staff outsourcing, payroll outsourcing, compensation and benefits management, employee engagement, training and development, recruitment and executive search, event management, and ushering services. For more information, contact Sadat Consult on 0591405555 or 044629245. We have a very beautiful guest for today. He's a gentleman, not a lady. I said beautiful because I know him personally. He has a very good heart and he's a very lovely person I've known for close to a decade or more than that now. The topic for today is the HR Digest The HR Digest for today is episode 156. Episode 156. And the topic for today is mastering conflict resolution as a professional HR. Conflict is inevitable in the workplace. If managed wrongly, it damages trust, moral, productivity. Handled professionally, it becomes a tool for clarity, stronger relationship, and better decision making. The session equips professionals with practical skills to manage difficult conversations, address tension early, and resolve disputes without escalating or biases. We are going to learn how to communicate clearly under pressure, protect working relationships, turn conflict into constructive outcomes that supports performance and organizational stability. Today, I have a guest I've known for a long while. I offended him, but he's forgiving me, so we are back together. Thank God. His name is Senor M. Ajagben. I hope I haven't murdered your name. Senor, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm going to do a brief introduction on you. Senor M. Ajagben is a labor consultant, a mediator and arbitrator listed with the National Labour Commission. He is a trained non-executive director and member of the Institution of Directors, Ghana. His specialization is employment relations in mergers and acquisition, project management, workplace, and employment law. Senior has 20 years work experience spanning the public sector, judicial service, deputy director of project, national ADR coordinator. For the private sector, he has worked in general consulting as senior executive in HRM and as executive director C-suite in the banking and mining construction sectors. He studied minerals processing and meteorological engineering from Kenya University. He also read conflict, peace, and security studies at the master's level. He holds a postgraduate qualification in business administration, international human resource, and human relations and diplomacy. In the professional arena, he's a fellow of the Institute of Professional Management Ghana, which is currently the CIHRM, and he's a senior professional in human resource, which is the SPHRM, that's the US bridge of HR, and holds a professional certification in project management, which is PMP. Senior is the author of two books, Career Toolkits for Successful Job Hunting and 51 Rules for the Perfect Gentleman, and also several articles on HRM, dispute resolution, and corporate governance. He is currently the country director of WBHO Construction Ghana, a multinational civil and mining construction firm. Senior, you have a tall list. I'm yet together. Congratulations and welcome on board.
Thank you, Winifred. Um, you could have summarized the whole introduction, but thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah.
You're welcome. So, Senor, you can go ahead and give us a 20 minutes talk, then we come back with Q&A.
Well, thank you, Winifred. I don't think it's gonna be a 20-minute talk unless, of course, certain things come up while I'm speaking. I want to speak mostly from um, like extempore because this topic is quite very passionate. I'm very passionate about this topic, and I'm thinking we should skip all the theory and the structured way of doing things and just have a conversation with all listeners. So I think for conflict management or conflict resolution as a professional, I think the first thing that people would want to know is what I think conflict is. If anyone has been my student before or has heard me talk about conflict, or definitions, I keep saying everyone has to give definitions in accordance with their understanding of a subject matter. So textbooks will tell you what the writers of those textbooks think about the specific definition. So the definition I'm going to give about conflict would be my own opinion in terms of studies and in terms of understanding and practice of conflict resolution or dispute resolution. So basically, for me, it is a disagreement between two or more parties that causes a problem. So the problem may depend on the context within which the conflict is happening. If it is the workplace, then it is a business problem. Or if it is within business partners, then it's a business problem. If it is within the social setting, then it is a social problem. If it is within the community, then it is, or within communities, then it's a community problem. And so conflict generally is a disagreement between two or more parties, because there can be multi-party, two or more parties in disagreement that results in a problem. So indeed, if there is no problem, then conflict really is not too much of a case, is it? And therefore, it is when conflict creates problems, then we have to do something about it. I know that people would, listeners would know that conflict is inevitable. And true, it is because of our various differences. We are created as different people and we think differently, we think independently, we don't have the same likes, and so on and so forth. And so we are bound to disagree at some point or the other. And when anybody disagrees with you as a professional, and I'll talk about the context of this discussion now. But when you don't have a conflict with anybody, then it means you are not interdependent. So the one of the core pillars of conflict would be that the parties or the multi-parties have to have some form of interdependentness within their space. It means that they find themselves within a space that they cannot do anything about. And that brings me to the context of this discussion. So, professional, career people, HR people, other professionals who may be listening to us, we practice our professional trade in the workplace. So, the context of this discussion will definitely be in the workplace. So, conflict in the workplace as a professional. So, because it's inevitable and you are bound to face it, it's always important to treat it as a career strategy, to treat conflict resolution as a professional, as a career strategy, so that you can handle it appropriately. And what I always say is that to turn it around to become good rather than evil, something that pushes your career rather than something that either diminishes it or um, basically kills it. So, depending on how you handle conflict in the workplace as a professional, as a career person, it can do or undo you. And that is why I think this discussion is very, very important. So, naturally, we would go on to ask ourselves, how do you handle conflict in the workplace? Um, and I'm going to stick. I'm going to skip this natural order because everybody's going to say, oh, so how do you resolve disputes in the workplace? I'm sure our further discussions would bring out, and the questions will bring out exactly how and practically how we do it. But I think I want to talk about why we need to anticipate conflict as a career strategy. You know, they said that mature people are those who handle themselves well. So when two people disagree, sometimes you hear others say that, oh, you are the mature one. You are supposed to handle this better. You have an expectation and accountability for you to handle situations better. And when we shifted to HR people, because HR people hold organizations together, and anybody can debate me on that any day. HR people are the center of an organization and they hold everything together. They are the go to people. They are the ones who are required to answer the strong and the tough questions of the organization, and therefore must be the ones above board to be able to handle conflict. And that is why, as a strategy and as a career strategy, once you handle disputes well, your career will progress. You become more respectable in the workplace. You will earn your salary and you would become dependable and a confidant because people know that you are emotionally uh, mature. So, as an HR person, how would you use conflict as a strategy? You know, there's a concept, okay, a practice which is called managerial mediation. And the principles of managerial mediation basically state that you have to be, as a managerial mediator, you have to play the role of an interested neutral. So a neutral person who is yet interested in the subject matter and is interested in the resolution because it's a business problem that has to be resolved. Otherwise, it will cost the company or it will cost the organization or it will cost the business. So I would think that we can use the principles of managerial mediation as professionals to resolve disputes. Now, if the person disagreeing with you, and in the workplace, normally, as HR professionals, we will have people depending on us to resolve problems, right? So we can be interested neutrals and resolve the dispute. However, what if the dispute is with your boss or with two bosses and you are supposed to do something about it? Then you have to be a neutral that looks at the interest of the organization first and the joint interest of the parties who are in dispute. Okay, the interest of the organization first, and then the joint interest of the parties that are involved in the dispute. What if it is the HR person that is disagreeing with a colleague or a boss? When disagreeing with a colleague, we need to anticipate communication and understanding. Um, Often emotions out, being emotionally aware, emotionally mature, and to continue talking about the problem, not making the problem the other person, but identifying the problem and dealing with the problem long enough to be able to resolve it. If it's a senior person that the professional is in conflict with, sometimes it's good to go with an apology first because the power balance or the power situation is imbalanced. You want to come in as the more humble and the more accountable person, but still finding ways of stating the real problem and indicating the joint interest in ensuring that those problems are resolved so that it is it is not it does not become a confrontational situation. You will have to go in the more accountable and the more humble um, way or approach when it comes to dealing with conflicts or disagreements with superiors. When you treat it as a strategy, then the conflict management or conflict resolution as a strategy as a professional, then you would ensure that you anticipate it, and when it happens, you have a roadmap in how you would approach it and how you handle it. So I would say read about managerial mediation, read about self-mediation, and also you would need tools like emotional intelligence to be able to handle conflict. How emotional intelligence works in conflict resolution is that you are aware of yourself and you are aware of your emotions, and you know that you are responsible for your own and accountable for your own emotions and behavior, knowing that if you attack the problem within the context of the conflict with proper behavior, a targeted, approach of ensuring that you deal with the problem, you discuss the problem at hand, and not attack the other personality and not get emotionally involved in the situation, you would then resolve maybe perhaps 80, 85, 90% of all the disagreements that come your way. And then your career will be progressing because people would not be afraid to disagree with you, and people would know that when they disagree with you, you are in a position, or if they disagree with anybody else, you are in a position as a trusted professional who can come and not be emotional and not take sides and have the matter resolved. So finally, I would say that conflict resolution is a solid tool. It can help you mend relationships. And like I said, when someone is in conflict with you, then you matter, right? When somebody disagrees with you, then you matter, especially when it takes long. You see how intense disputes between lovers are because they are interdependent. In the workplace, when you don't matter, people don't bother ensuring that they disagree with you and stretch it and make sure they know that they are disagreeing with you. Of course, except with the corporate bullies, the bullies in the workplace who would always want to have their way. but that's a different topic. But people who genuinely disagree with you and are in conflict with you and it becomes a banter, you matter. That is why it happens. And you need to use that as a vehicle to mend relationships and become more visible and more authentic and more resourceful in the workplace. That way, your career grows very fast. And as a personal example, I have been in dispute resolution for almost 25 years. Um, and you find if you follow my career trajectory, I grew very quickly within corporate and even in the consulting, independent consulting space. And it's always because we applied some of these processes to how we deal with people and how we make sure that when we mend bridges, we maintain them and we use it as a vehicle based on which we become better professionals. So, my listeners and friends, HR professionals and other professionals, these are the few thoughts that I have about dispute resolution and resolving these in the workplace. I think the question and answers will bring out more of what we want to hear, and don't be afraid to ask the pertinent questions that really bother you with resolving disputes in the workplace. And if I've left anything out, guys, just remind me and I will deal with it. So
Thank you.
questions now. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a lot to unpack. I think you've gone ahead of the conversation, but it's good for everyone here because we are also eager to learn from your years of experience in conflict management. The first thing that I wanted to ask you, even before we step into the nitty-gritties, is it possible to have a conflict-free organization? So the question is in twofold. Is it possible to have a conflict-free organization? And even if it's possible, is it ideal to have an organization like that where there's no conflict and everyone is okay with everyone and the work is moving on? Is it a good thing if it's possible to have a conflict-free organization?
Okay. So clearly it's not possible. The organization is, that's why we say an organization works like an organism, right? Or it's ideally supposed to work like an organism. But organization, especially in the 21st century, and especially in this AI age, have become so complex in terms of diversity. Okay, the people who work there are so diverse. They work across regional and international boundaries. They work across cultures and so on and so forth. There is no way an organization can exist without conflict. And that is why it is important that organizations have a structure, preconceived structure that they would use to resolve disputes at each level, in terms of their governance at the board level, in terms of their management at the executive level, and in terms of supervision and operations at the supervisory level, and down below, where you have self resolution mechanisms. That is why, for example, the most primary tool for resolving workplace disputes would be the grievance systems of the organization. The grievance systems, and sometimes with organizations that are a bit bougie and a bit ahead of time, they will add early warning systems where sudden interchanges observed between employees or supervisor employee or manager employee or employee employee interrelationships will quickly trigger a system where they would quickly get an assistance, an early warning system of resolving such interpersonal disputes or conflict. So there is no way, and any organization that does not anticipate conflict as a strategy and as a risk, especially as a risk, then they are not ready to progress. They are not ready to survive Because while you fight, your customers will not be waiting. While you fight, your competitors will not be waiting. So yes, there is no possibility that there's an organization without conflict. But having said that, it's important that organizations anticipate the potential difficulties or dangers in conflicts when they occur, and have structured ways of resolving it across all the structures of the organization. Yes.
Very well said. Thank you so much for that. Um, I'll ask a follow-up question, because when we were talking, I heard a lot about communication, about people communicating to each other, their superiors, their subordinates, and the people that they work on a daily basis with. It seems like conflict management is deeply embedded in communication. How does the two interlink, and what are some of the things that we need to look out as professionals when we are designing our communication strategies to make sure that it's conflict proof, or at least it minimizes the likelihood of conflict in the workplace?
Okay. One of the types of conflict is communication conflict, right? It has to do with miscommunication, and also perception, having received information. Basically, communication would be defined around a message where there is a sender and a receiver, and there's a medium of transmission where the receiver receives the message. But this has been, in practice, has been researched so many times to say that when there are multiple transmissions along the way before it gets to the final receiver, or when there are multiple interruptions, like through other people or through other medium, for it to get to the last person, the message normally is distorted. So it means that the message that was sent from the sender gets distorted along the way to the receiver. That medium is where the conflict is cooked, because then if communication is not clear, it's not honest, it's not gentle, it is not respectful, it is not motivating, the receiver will receive it with certain perceptions and act on it in ways that may cause the business problem. That is where, and I'm talking about the receiver will misunderstand the message and interpret it to suit their own perception and concept. And that is the problem. Often we say conflict is the other person, it's the other person who caused it. If you have to deal with two people, disagreeing or in conflict, the one will say, oh, hey, no, it is that person. We professionals in dispute resolution, we say that it is not personal. The person did an act, and emotional intelligence will tell you that it is the action you are angry with and not the person. And so if you could deal with the actions practically within the context of why that person did it or not, you would resolve the dispute. So issue is that communication is key. If we communicate wrongly, we'll send the wrong information. People will interpret it for themselves. And then a practical example is when I was transferred to work in Kumasi, I realized their communication style was very different. And it was the first few days when I got there. So I went to Ash Foam to go and get, or an Ash Foam shop to go and get a mattress for the bed I bought. Right in front of the shop, a motorcycle rider fell. So I'm a first aider, I'm a first aid trainer. So I rushed to the place, to him, to help him. And the first thing I said is, are you okay? And in first aid, you need to get the person's name. You need to keep calling the person by the name. So I said, oh, are you okay? What's your name? So I tried helping him. And he said, am I okay? Say, I didn't know me. What's it me okay? Me okay. Now who hear me? Now I'm like, no, I mean, are you all right? Are you hurt? Are you not? Communication. Depending on how the context is, wrong communication will create a different perception in the eyes of the receiver, and you would have conflict. So communication is key. We need to communicate directly in a gentle manner, in an honest manner, in a transparent manner, and also we need to communicate to edify. Okay, always sugarcoat your communication and make the other person receiving it less threatened and less on edge. And that would normally help. And communication is really key. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you are muted, Winnie.
Yeah, I'm muted. Sorry. This is HR Digest episode 158, and the topic for today is ministering conflict resolution as a professional, mastering conflict resolution, pardon me, as a professional. And the guest for today is Senior M. Ajabin, who is a labor consultant and country director for WBHO Construction. Okay, I'd like to acknowledge the people who have joined live. So um I have here Atia Jifa. Jifa is joining us from Kumasi. I have Samuel Abdo Tay hyphen X2K joining us from Accra. And I have God Godanadoko at 57. Okay, but he didn't say where he was joining us from. I'm Letitia Kujo. Okay, she has a question. And okay. So I have two questions. I would come back to the questions. I'd like to tell you about who we are and what we are into. We are Sadat, we are Sadat Consult Limited, and at Sadat Consult Limited, our services are At Sadat Consults Limited, our services are HR support, advisory outsourcing, talent acquisition and management, staff outsourcing, compensation and benefits management, employee management, training and development, payroll outsourcing, recruitment and executive search, event management, ushering services. You can contact us on 0244 629247 or 0591405555, or you can send a mail to us on sadatconsultlimited.com. We have an upcoming webinar which is happening. We have an upcoming webinar which is happening. The team is planning and conducting effective training and development. It's a 2-day training at Sadat Consults. The date is February, which is a Thursday, 26th, and Friday, 27th. The time is from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. each day. It's happening at Sadat Conference Room. The fee is 2,600, and the facilitator is my CEO, who is Patricia Abna Kisi, who is an HR consultant, thought leader, and CEO of Sadat Consult. We have an upcoming HR conference which is happening in Takrade. The HR conference is happening in Takrade, which is the edition, and the theme for the conference is authentic employer branding, purpose, people, and public trust. It's happening on Thursday, 26th of March at Western Serene Atlantic Hotel, Takrade. In person is 1,550, virtual is 1,250. And we employ all of you to either join in person or join virtually. I'd like to ask the two questions over here. Okay, I have Abigail Jifa. Abigail, you are from Accra. I have God Anna from Kumasi. I have Kwalfio. Okay, thank you, Kwalfio and Letitia Kujo. So, Mr. Senyor, Letitia is saying that how do you approach an employee who fails to grant an exit interview after resignation letter has been approved?
Well, this borders on exit management and not necessarily a dispute issue. But of course, I will answer it. The thing is, when employees are leaving or they leave, depending on the relationship we have with them, they may cooperate or not. And so often, the exit remuneration has to be placed at the tail end of the entire process, where they have to go through certain exit processes before they get that. Now, if you're an organization that doesn't have other exit payments other than the monthly pay and the person leaves, then it becomes very difficult if the person doesn't want to cooperate. The only time that you may have an opportunity to get the person to cooperate is when the person tries to get another job, and then the employer comes to you for reference, and you can contact the person and say that, look, you have these processes outstanding, and come and do them so that we can work on your references. Otherwise, we would send a bad reference. Of course, that is one of the ways of getting it bad. If you cannot use your structures to get people to cooperate with exits, processes, then you may be in trouble. That you cannot use any other means. Or, of course, you can use civil means of suing them to do that. But I don't encourage using those kinds of tools, litigation to resolve interdependent relationships. So yeah, that is what I have to say about that. But I think we can have that as your answer. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so Qualfio123 says that if you communicate wrongly, you send a wrong communication. This is said by Mr. Senor. So based on the things you've been saying, people are just quoting you and saying what you're saying. Thank you. Over to you, my co-host.
Thank you very much, Winnie. So I want us to come home. So personally, I want us to have certain tips that when you go to work on Monday morning, we can use it, and throughout the week, something that will ring a bell in our hearts and in our minds, so that we don't escalate things more than they should. So personally, when tensions are high in the organization, something has happened. People are shouting on top of their voices. What do you think is maybe a mindset shift or something that we can tell ourselves to calm ourselves down in situations so that we don't escalate issues at the workplace? Do you have something that you work with personally that works for you?
I am. So you want the viewers and listeners to get free application for
Yes,
how I
yes,
handle it. Okay, no problem. I mean, Mondays are crazy days. I don't know why, but Mondays, everybody wants to get a lot of things done. So everybody ends up having a lot on the table. And it's a likely, and because of the high tensions and the performance expectations of that particular day, that there's highly the probability that people would run into each other, people would be impatient with each other, and it will resolve in conflict. So here's what it is. You need to psych yourself that it's going to be a difficult day, so that psychologically and mentally you are ready for it, and then it doesn't overwhelm you. So you are more in control of your person, of your mind, and of your emotions. When people say things that offend you, you need to immediately change gear to professional language so that you don't use any bad language. Switch directly to proper professional language and focus on the issues at hand. Somebody accuses you of something. Pardon me, do you mean you rephrase and get the person to answer to the key issue on hand? When in a meeting, everybody is shouting, everybody is angry, everybody is, or one person continues to go on and on and on, you want to call for a quick break so that people can breathe. And then when you go out, you have side conversations with a few of them, pointing out the key objectives of that meeting and the outcomes that are expected in that meeting. try to calm everybody, and then you call them back, and then you continue with the meeting. Normally, you would have a better option, or end the meeting and continue another day. What if you are not the one who is chairing the meeting? So you are a participant and you realize things have gone wrong. Hey, you can call the attention of the chairman and say that at this point, maybe you propose for a short 2 minute, 5 minute break for everybody to breathe, and then you come back. It's normally helpful. The final one is where your boss says mean things to you and you don't agree, or your boss insults you, or your boss uses bad language. Are you stupid? Or things like, do you think that I am a child? Your boss can say, do you think I am stupid? Do you think I am? That is an insult right in your face. I mean, how do you handle such a situation? Because immediately it creates conflict. And sometimes you want to either say something hurtful back, or you sometimes want to hit them. All right. How do you handle that? You need to acknowledge their anger. Acknowledge their anger. Oh, sir, I know you are not happy with what has happened. I will go and I'll come back with a better result. You need to go in a more, in terms of acknowledging their anger, in a more conciliatory manner. Then you can go back somewhere, go to the washroom, lock your office door if you are not in an open office, and then you can say some few things to yourself that makes you feel good. You know, sometimes I insult people in my head a lot without saying it out. It's a way of venting. Okay, we've not discussed venting, but sometimes people want to vent. So in conflict resolution, you allow them, like a boss who is angry, you can allow them to vent. When they are done, you apologize, acknowledge their anger, and tell them that, oh, I'll come back to you with a better result, or I'll come back so that we discuss this further. And that kind of approach normally makes them respect you, and make them realize that, okay, this is somebody who can take criticism, or who has the heart to be able to take the heat. People normally say that they can work under pressure until the pressure gets to them, and then they realize that they cannot work under pressure. So anyway, on your CVs, don't put I'm able to work under pressure. It's not, because it can cost you. That's a lighter side, but I think that when you acknowledge people, you acknowledge their feelings, and then you act conciliatorily, you can get far with having things so on a Monday you want to be like that, because you need to be sure that everybody is heightened. People have gone into meetings, they've been bashed and things like that. So you need to be self-aware, and then you can solve some of these little things. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. We have something in our toolkit that we can use. As someone who is involved in a lot of dispute resolution outside of your own workplace because of the position that you find yourself in, I want to ask this question. Is it in the interest of an organization, or maybe a personal, someone, an employee, to let a conflict leave the confines of the organization and maybe seek third party adjudication or anything of the sort? What are some of the implications on the person, and then on the organization and the people involved? Would you advise? I know it's something that you do professionally, but based on your experience, I would like you to get into this a little bit as we are wrapping up the conversation. Thank you.
Okay. So employees who are conflicted with the organization and go to third parties to have the matter resolved. One thing I always say to individual clients who come to me, or even groups of worker groups who come to me for our representation services, I always tell them, well, you can't take on an organization and win, because normally you are targeting one person in the organization, but the organization is not that person. It's a limited liability that fights for himself. And so you would be against all the resources of the organization. It doesn't mean that within certain contexts you cannot take on an organization. When it is your right so to do, you can. But when you are within the organization, there are policies and uh, um, policies and structures. I'm looking for a word, that's why I'm pausing. But the policies and structures, for example, the grievance policy is one of them. There are other, sometimes the whistleblowing policies and so on and so forth that you can use to have issues resolved. In any case, according to the labor law, when the grievance process ends and you are still not satisfied, then you need to write to the management or the organization officially and indicate what next steps you would want to take. Of course, they may not like it, but if you've given them enough time, they've not resolved the dispute, then your other option is a third party uh, uh, institution like the National Labor Commission or court or something like that. It is within your right, but you need to exhaust the internal processes first. Okay, so the phrase I was looking for was standard operating procedure, SOPs. So there are SOPs within the operational context that you can use to resolve disputes. Within the contractual context, you have the grievance process that you can use. And then finally, I nearly forgot, you need to remember that because some of the issues that you have to deal with may not be issues you are very familiar with and you have competency to deal with, if you are not part of a union, then you are not stopped from seeking the views and the representation of either a legal person, a lawyer, or a workplace consultant who would then work with your management on your behalf. Okay, so you have that right also to representation, and it's a constitutional right. So these are some of the things that you can do, but certainly you need to use the internal processes. And then you can also engage the services of either a consultant or a lawyer to help you or to represent you or represent your issues before management. Sometimes managements are angry, sometimes they don't even want to entertain the third party. But if you are a business owner here listening, or you are in management position, or you are a CEO or an executive director or something, you sit on a board, you need to know that organizations cannot prevent employees from getting representation. The way you cannot prevent an employee who is dissatisfied about something to join the union, the way you cannot prevent an employee from joining the union, you can also not prevent an employee from seeking the services of a lawyer or a consultant in dealing with contractual issues and their personal issues. But in all this, remember, we need to use the internal process and mechanisms of resolving issues when they occur. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So we've all heard our expert here talk to us about this subject. I know it's something that are on people's minds. So you have the right, but there are a lot of things to consider. You need to make sure that internally all the policies and the procedures are exhausted, and you need to list the actions that you are going to take and let the people that you are going with to know that this is what you intend to do. Also, it's not cheap. It comes at a cost. So it's something that you need to also consider. On the other side, employers are also, they are supposed to also know that it's a right of the employee, and then they have obligations to make sure that things are resolved amicably. I think this has been a wonderful conversation. There are a few comments, so I will take it, and then if there's anything else, we can wrap up the conversation. So we have Okay, it's actually a comment from Concord Edmond. Concord Edmond says he's joining us from Ho Teaching Hospital. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. If you have any question at all, you can post in the comments. Senor is here, he's available, and then he's ready to answer your questions. There's something interesting about the topic. I've been thinking about it. We know that people can master a lot of things. So how did you begin to think about mastering conflict management? How did you end up in conflict? It's an interesting topic, and it's an interesting profession. And I'm just wondering, thinking out loud, that how did you end up in conflict management? If you can tell us in a minute or two, and then you take any question from our participants, and then we can wrap up for today.
Okay, so this is interesting, but you find out my background is engineering. I studied minerals engineering, metallurgy, and passed out of KNUST, IMME, Institute of Mining and Minerals Engineering. So at the time, I should have gone out to practice as an engineer, but the gold prices were very low at that time, below $400 at the time. Now you know it's about 5,000. So the companies were not employing, so you didn't stand a chance in getting a job in the mining sector. So I went into banking, did national service with commercial bank, and then got an opportunity to work with Barclays. I was working with Barclays when I realized banking was a bit too dull for me. I mean, with all due respect to bankers, I think we are individuals. I had a certain energy when I was young. I always wanted to think fast. There were so many things going on that I wanted to do. So banking was a bit slow. It was repetitive. It was not something, that really challenged me too much. So I took a short course, a diploma in conflict studies. Okay, so disputes resolution. Okay, with Game and Game Academy of Mediation at the time. And then after that, they gave me an opportunity to work with them. So I left Barclays to go and work with them in 2004. And that was the beginning of my journey. And then I read a master's in conflict, peace, and security. In 2005, having worked in the sector, I got the opportunity to work with the Judicial Service and set up their dispute resolution program, ADR program, and things like that. I got listed as a mediator and arbitrator with the National Labour Commission 2005 when I was just 26 years. So things happened very quickly for me, and then I found myself here. And it's quite lucrative. It's quite, it pays, it puts a lot of money in the pocket. So I thought, why not? And finally, let me just say that I think I was looking for something I was passionate about. My father is a retired as a Supreme Court judge, and some of us were supposed to read law. Unfortunately, none of us, his 6 children, read law. And so I think I was looking for something that was close to law, close to what a lawyer normally would do. And so dispute resolution consulting, an ADR practitioner, and also a mediator arbitrator then became something that I did well, that was close to law. But of course, I didn't really like litigation, so there was no way I was going to, pursue law and read that aspect and practice that aspect of law. Yeah. So I hope I've not talked too much. Sometimes I talk too much.
I think that's really interesting. So in short, you don't want peace. You were there and you decided, let me get into conflict. But yeah, it's worked out fantastic. And I'm glad we have this conversation. Viewers and participants, we've shared our links in the comment page. You can join any of our WhatsApp groups, the HR Digest group, and then the HR Mother group as well. There are opportunities that are shared on a daily basis that you can take advantage of simply by joining. We are in the information world, so being in the right place at the right time can change your life, and then you can move on to do other big things. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Senor, I'll give you a minute. I know you do a lot of things, but in a minute or two, if there's anything that you do as a service that you think our audience would be interested in, you can share briefly with them, and then let them know how to find you on social media so that they can continue the conversation after here.
Okay, let me start on social media handles. But my number is a public number. I don't have any, of course I have one private number. I don't even really use it. But my number is 0244 792728. 0244 792728. This comes to WhatsApp, and you can contact me anytime about this this topic or any other issues you have regarding workplace. And this time, also you can contact me about anything engineering, anything projects, and so on and so forth. On Facebook, it's my name, Senor M. Ajabing. On LinkedIn, it is Senor M. Ajabing. On Snapchat, it is Senor M. Ajabing. On LinkedIn, it is at ADJSGH, ADJSGH, and which other one? But most probably, look for me on LinkedIn. It is Senor M. Ajabing, and let us connect there, because that's the forum, the professional forum. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity on other platforms to discuss this some more.
Yes, I think the 1 hour is not exhaustive. So thank you so much. Thank you very much for sharing this insight with us. Thank you, our audience. George, if you can bring back our announcement as we wrap up. This has been the SEDAT. This has been the SEDAT HR Digest, and we've had a lot of fun with Senor answering all the questions and then giving us practical insights that we can use at our workplace. So again, there's a conference coming up in Takoradi, and you can join virtually if you decide to. And if you are in the environs of Takoradi, you can also go in person. We have a tall speaker list, wonderful personalities, and special guest of honors joining us for this edition. Our numbers are on there. You can take the numbers and call us. It's happening on the 26th of March, 2026. So we still have a month away, a month and a few weeks away to prepare for that. So if you are interested in it, just call us or contact us on any of our social media platforms, and then we'll give you more details on these things. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Winnie.
We have a 2-day training called Planning and Effective Training and Development. Planning and Conducting an Effective Training and Development. It's a 2-day training at SEDAT Consult. It's from Thursday, February 23rd to Friday, February 27th, happening at 8:30 to 3:30 each day. The fee is 2,600 Ghana cedis, VAT inclusive, and our facilitator is my CEO, Lady Patricia Benakisi, who is an HR consult, thought leadership, and CEO of SEDAT Consult. You can reach out to anybody on this phone number 0591405555, or you can hop on, whether you watch now or later, just join the WhatsApp group, and when you join the WhatsApp group, you get all the information. Thank you very much for joining us today. Senor, kudos to you. You did justice to the topic for today. And co-hosts, thank you for the questions. Over to you. See you next week. Ciao. Bye-bye.